Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFK journey video. In this video we're going to be going through the best whale defenses to set in Supreme Arena for this week. Okay, so I've thought a lot about it. Basically, I have actually 3 different formations that I'm going to be showing you for today. One with 2 Hypergean Celestial teams, one with 1 Hypergean Celestial team, and one with all 3 Mauler teams. Because as you guys know, the most powerful defenses in Supreme Arena this season are either Maulers or Hypergean Celestials. So in a whale account, you're going to only want to be using those teams. Okay, let's begin with team number 1 that I have fielded here. Now, this is a team which has been around for a while. It is fairly popular and a team you've probably seen before. But the real advantage of it is, first of all, you're going to be able to get the Hypergean Celestial buff tiles. And then number 2, you have heroes which are all very difficult to remove from the battlefield. Freyasto on the same row is basically one of the tankiest heroes in the game, along with Verdant Spell, which is going to give them even more damage reduction for your tanks. Basically, the Freyastos are probably not going anywhere. Damien can keep respawning himself. Tassi has multiple procs of her invincibility. And Taylene, of course, will keep reviving herself. And Scarlita is up in the air. So the reason why I think this team is a great option for Hypergean Celestial is because Scarlita is going to come down and probably is going to be guaranteed to have 4 or more allies alive, and so she is going to be dealing her true damage and has that kill threat and knockoff potential. Damien as well is great here. Damien does very well with Taylene because he can sustain the Taylene, and even if the opponent has a lot of burst at the beginning of the fight, Damien can just respawn his Toy Chariot, Taylene can revive herself, and Tassi can also proc her invincibility. The Verdant Spell, I think, is the best artifact to pick here. In total, we have 3 or more different classes. We have tanks as Freyasto, we have the support Damien, we have the mages, and we have the warrior Scarlita. You just want to make sure you have 3 unique classes fielded or more, because then you're going to gain bonus effect of energy generation each time you apply your class-based buff. And as for the class-based buffs, it will give haste to your supports, it will give life drain to your warriors, which life drain I think is probably the weakest buff, and it will give energy recovery to your mages, which is good. Now, as for the positioning, I definitely wanted the Festers on the same row, and I think I prefer to have them as frontmost as possible towards the enemy side of the field. And I want to have Damien behind the main Freyasto. That is because Damien's charms are going to give bonus damage reduction and energy on hit to the hero which is in front of him. And this is going to make the main Freyasto even more difficult to kill, which is important because we want the illusion to die first if needed, because then that can be respawned. Taylene is behind the illusion Freyasto to get the damage reduction. It was either a question of, do we want to have Taylene here, do we want to have Tassi here? I think the damage reduction buff is better on Taylene because then she can cast maybe her ultimate for longer or not get killed and needing to revive as early on. Compared to Tassi, that even with or without the damage reduction, she can proc her invincibility. She's already probably the most difficult to kill on the team. And that's why I wanted to have her on the back on the dark buff tile. Now, as for which one goes on dark, which one goes on light, I prefer to have Scarlita on the light buff tile because when she's in the air, she's gaining attack. And the light buff tile, the prime courier of the light buff tile will basically deal true damage equal to the attack of whichever hero is the prime courier for that tile. And so the heroes which have the highest attack, those are the ones I want to have on the light buff tile, which should be Scarlita after she ramps up. So that was basically the whole team strategy here. Now, I know it is weak to Mauler. Maulers always have a potential of breaking through teams like these because they just have so much burst. Even though all of the teams, all the heroes here are difficult to kill, like you can imagine Odie Harak type combo getting some kills here. Although Harak is going to have a little bit of a tough time getting kills because Damien doesn't work for his kill, Taylene doesn't work for his kill, and then even Freyasters are really tanky and difficult to kill. So overall, I'm a fan of this team. This is what I'm going to try for this week. Let's move on to team number 2. So team number 2 is our secondary Hypergean Celestial team for Diurnal Dunlinger. And again, for whales, a lot of people will have Dunlinger and Diurnal both built, and you'll want to build one team around them. Now, the problem with Dunlinger Diurnal is it is again weak to Maulers. Because if you're able to just nuke through the Diurnal and then basically proc his charm effect for that invincibility and then nuke him again, it's over. Because all of the damage basically is coming from the Diurnal in this comp. And if he is not able to nuke through and kill the opponent, then you're not going to basically be able to win the fight. However, the other thing you have to realize is the opponents can only use so many Mauler teams. Like, in total, maybe they're two really strong Mauler teams. One would be a Heroic Mauler team, and one would be maybe a Lenya Mauler team. But apart from that, you just don't have enough options to go for a third really strong, powerful Mauler team. However, they could go for a Mauler Tossie type team and try to solo me, and that also has potential against this. But basically, what I went for here is I definitely like to run Lily May with Diagonal Dunlinger, because Lily May is a secondary threat who is a really actually powerful threat, can deny ultimate cast of the opponent, and it will make it difficult, for example, for an enemy Tossie to solo you in the end, because your Lily May can keep interrupting the Tossie's ultimate. That is a powerful thing. The other thing is that your Lily May is going to get growth stacks, and so she's going to gain attack percent, and she's on the light prime, like the light buff tile for the prime carrier, so she's going to be dealing basically more damage because her attack is higher with the true damage attack from this Hypogean Celestial buff tile. The other thing is, for this specific map in this week, we have the dual rampage, which means for the first 5 seconds all allies are going to be unaffected, which honestly doesn't really matter because we're already running the Valor Shield spell onto Dunlinger, for example, so he's already unaffected. Diona is unaffected because of that. Lily May immediately goes for Rainstorm Ballet, so it really is only benefiting Rainier and Laika. But I guess, for example, the opponent will not be able to like go for Iron and loop Laika into the middle of the team. And I put Laika off in this position because I think she is the safest over here. She's still going to provide the attack speed buffs to your team. The only thing to think about, and why people usually like to have Laika in like basically a middle position of your team, is because her ultimate cast will cast in some direction, and it will want to hit as many of your allies as possible to deal some bonus damage. But honestly, when we think about it, Laika, like, by the time Laika casts your ultimate, the fight is pretty much already decided. Like, you should have already won at that point, and so I just want to keep Laika safe and a little bit more difficult for the opponent to kill instead. And we have basically a crit boost for the first 5 seconds of the battle, and I don't know if that counts as an intoxication stack for Diagonal. I know that Valor Shield spell does, and that is kind of like a similar type limited boost. It's not a permanent stat boost. So if this actually counts as a boost, then we have all of them. We have attack speed from Laika, we have Valor Shield from Diagonal Dunlinger, we have attack buff from Rainier, and then if this one provides it as well, and actually we don't even need it. So this is basically the team comp that I'm running. I think it will be good, but again, it is a bit weak to Maulers, but there's not really anything you can do about that. Okay, moving on to team number 3. Team number 3 is our full-out Mauler Heroic team. Of course, you have to run one of those. So basically, I'm not going to be running Lenya in my optimal teams setup that I have right now. And we also didn't use Thorin yet, so I think Thorin is a great time to use him as well. So Shakira does really well in the Mauler team because he can buff up your allies. Now, I don't want to put Shakira on the buff tile because if I'm running Smokey, in my opinion, Smokey has to be on the buff tile. So he again ends up in a position which is favorable for your team, and also he has that additional survivability. Odie on this special tile is like going to be a menace. The bonus attack speed and life drain, and also if we have Thorin soul pacting him like we have here, it is going to be difficult for the opponent to kill the Odie. Now, I guess one problem you can see is that if the opponent like goes for Iron, they can loop in your Odie and then begin trying to kill him quickly, but he still has a Soul Pact of Thorin. Hopefully that will allow him to survive for long enough. And your Shakir has a bonus energy on hit. He has the damage reduction from the Smoky Charms, should be tanky enough to be able to cast his ultimate. Now, I've gone for the Tide Call spell. I don't know, like the thing was I only had basically 2 good options left, like Resonating Spell, because Frontline Spell I never run on defense because I feel like it's too easy to counter, because all the opponent has to do is bring Mauler buff tiles, and then they are going to teleport first because they have like the priority being on attack, and then I will not be able to ever trigger my frontline spell. And so you can go for frontline spell and hope like the opponent doesn't bring Maulers or can't bring Maulers into that team, and then that's fine. Like if they don't bring Maulers, I'm guaranteed to teleport into their face, and I'm going to activate frontline spell, and then this team is crazy. Like on offense, if you're running this team with frontline spell, is basically probably the strongest team. Like, yeah, one of the strongest teams. But for defense, frontline spell is counterable. That's why I don't like to run it. So with either Resonating or Tide Call, in my opinion, And I want to try Tide Call because in this team we have Shakira, who has like a low energy threshold for casting ultimate. Odie starts with pre-filled energy. I'm sure like Smokey will be able to cast pretty frequently. So we can actually trigger the Tide Call spell pretty effectively with this team. And also it gives you really good stats, HP, haste, and crit I'm not a fan of, but the HP and haste is really nice. So Resonating would also be a great option onto Heroic. That is a great thing to try. And you could even do like Great Sword spell. Honestly, you could do anything you wanted. But I'm going to try Tide Call for this week. So these are the teams which I'm going to be planning to run. This is my initial set for this week, but I want to show you some other alternatives, and maybe this can also help you out if you don't have some of these heroes built, or if you just want to try some different variations. Okay, so formation, this is formation number 1. Now formation number 2 Maulers, let's go ahead and lock this in. 2 Maulers is really strong. Now, Feresto, basically, I like to go for Feresto with Maulers or Feresto with Hypogean Celestial. I do think this is a great team. Having basically Coco to give the charm bonus to your main Feresto, making him tankier, and damage reduction onto Shakir, making Shakir difficult to kill. You have Lenya and Mikola on the buff tiles because really, in my opinion, Lenya and Mikola are the most susceptible to being killed, and so if they're immune to fatal damage, that will be basically your whole team will survive better. And also you're probably going to control the on arena really effectively because you have both Ferestos about to walk into the on arena. Shakir will be running in there, and Lenya and Mikola hopefully will be teleporting into there. Again, we're using the Verdant spell, increasing the tankiness of your Feresto, increasing the penetration of both Lenya and Shakir, so they hit harder. So this is a great Mauler team that you can run, and I have run in the past. Okay, so for team number 2, basically, I just wanted to give you an alternative version for the Dunlinger Download team with Damien instead of Leica, if that does better for you. I don't know, personally, I feel like Leica just does make more sense, because she's going to ramp up your team the fastest, and you get that initial burst of damage. Damien, however, has more of a stall factor with the healing, resurrection, like respawning himself, and also the haste buff. So this is something you could try, again, with the Valor Shield spell Diurnal, and Dunlinger are going to be unaffected for the first 10 seconds. And then finally, team number 3, again, I am trying the Tide Call spell. We don't have Shakir available, so we had to try something else. And what I do here is that I wanted my Thorin to be as protected as possible, and I also wanted Thorin to Soul Pact and protect the Smokey further. Because honestly, from this position, Smokey is going to be the bigger, like, sort of target than Odie. It's difficult for the opponent actually to even deal any damage to Odie, because at the beginning Brutus will be tanking it for enough time. Thorin will make it into the frontline territory, and then Thorin will tank out. So like Odie is pretty well protected, and that's why I thought maybe having Soul Pact onto Smokey would be better. So this is the other team that you can try. Again, you could use Resonating spell, you could use Tide Call spell. It is up to your preference. Even Valor Shield doesn't do badly with Heroic on the, like, with the Heroic in the rearmost to get the haste buff. You can try that, but like we're not running that because we're running Dunlinger Down on team number 2. Okay, so now let's move on to the final one, which is a 3 Mauler version, which is also going to be crazy strong. So, like, basically, you do not need Hypogean Celestial heroes in order to make really strong defenses for Supreme Arena, because Maulers do more than enough. So, this thing, I'm trying something really weird. So, we have Lenya in the back rearmost and Shakir in the frontmost. They're both going to be buffed up by the Valor Shield spell. We also have the damage reduction and energy on hit from Coco's charms onto Shakir. Shakir is going to be basically unkillable and unaffected at the beginning of the fight. He should be able to cast his ultimate and haste buff onto Lenya at the beginning of the fight. Then the Ferestos will walk up after the Shakir. Again, you should be able to control the on arena pretty easily with this team comp, and Lenya and Mikola will be immune to fatal damage. So team number 2 is basically, it is double threat, actually technically triple threat with the Elsa as well. But basically the idea is you have your Maulers, you have Maulers who are going to be tanky, have some crowd control like Lumont, and then you have your Tassi with Resonating spell on the back Mauler buff tile so that she can solo enemy teams, because Tassi always has the potential of soloing with Resonating spell. Lily May is really protected in this position. It will be difficult for the opponents to kill her, and Elsa is also on the buff tile because if you're running Elsa, I think she should be on the buff tile for that added safety, like basically the immunity to fatal damage, and she's a real threat, so being there is going to be crazy. And then finally, team number 3 is going to be the same team we already showed you, the Heroic team with Thorin, Soul Pacting, Smokey. So overall, these are basically some different variation of teams, even for whale defenses that you can run, or even if you're not a whale and you have these heroes built, these are things you can try, and I do think all of them should do pretty well. So you guys can let me know what you think about these defenses, and hopefully some of them can work for you. But it's always fun to do these whale defenses in Supreme Arena as well, because it's just cool to see if you have all of the heroes basically built up, what are going to be the optimal teams. And even then, it's difficult to decide. Like, I'm not saying that these are 100% the overall optimal teams for a fully built up, maxed out account. I don't know, but I'm suspecting these are pretty close to some of the best teams that we can put together. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll hopefully see you in the next video. And until then, everyone, peace out for now. And thank you for watching.